Welcome back, Shalloners. Today I want to talk about something that's a little bit different than what we usually talk about, but it's super timely, and I feel like we could have a really cool discussion and open up a dialogue about some things that are a little bit left of what we usually do, which is sexual fluidity. Now, we're talking about this because Halsey's boyfriend, Yunglud, just came out as sexually fluid, and I'm like, this is really interesting to me because I want to talk about the pros and cons of dating a guy who is sexually open about stuff. So we're going to break it all down. But first, just want to remind you guys, if you have a love question of your own or any kind of question, find me on the Instant Go app. My username is ShallonXO and click chat to get connected. And be sure to follow me on Instagram at ShallonXO, where I'd love to connect with you guys and let you weigh in on the next video topic, give me ideas, all that. And be sure to listen to my podcast, Girl on Top, every place podcasts are found. And I answer the best questions you guys submitted over the course of the week. So here's what Yunglud said. And he is... oh, there's so much eyeliner. I feel like he's kind of a ginger. Is he kind of like a secret ginger? I feel like I can see some freckles. And I've always liked Yunglud because he reminds me sort of my Chemical Romance days. I used to be super emo, super scenester. There's a Fall Out Boy song written about me. It doesn't matter. But I feel like he's picking up kind of where Gerard Way and Frank Iero left off. And this is so weird. And I don't know why we were like this then, but we emo girls loved fan fiction about Gerard and Frank being an item. So weird. Why were we so weird? Why were we so weird? But we were. And I still would read that fan fiction if anyone wants to point me in the right direction. Okay. So he says, I'm going to do his accent because, I like to do accents. I am more straight. I feel like he's husky. But if I walk down the street and met a fucking bloke tomorrow or a trans person, you never know. It's about connection. I'm very fluid about it. That's why I wear a fucking dress on stage. We've been brought up with such boundaries. Women wear dresses. Men sees women's curves. You can make baby. Western civilization. Sorry, I'm getting a little Aussie. Western civilization? Civilization puts women in dresses and men in trousers. Sorry. Before that, in medieval times, every fucker wore a dress. I'll wake up one day and look girly as fuck, and I'll wake up the next day and walk out of the house in a Fred Perry polo shirt looking like I beat the shit out of you. I love you, Yunglud. You don't look like you can beat the shit out of almost anyone. But I get his point. And I like Halsey, too. I mean, I read her Rolling Stone cover story, and I was like, oh, that's my girl. She's really cool. Sometimes she veers into, kind of how Lady Gaga gets, where it's just I'm making a statement, and she can be very bandwagony. I don't know. I feel like Gaga, whenever there's some issue going on, she's like, I've experienced it too. She just kind of inserts herself into conversations. You're like, girl, what's next? You were deployed in Iraq? Really? She's always on the scene. And Halsey is a big statement maker. She's a big personality. Big symbols make big targets. But overall, I like her. And I guess I like her and Yunglud together, although, do you know what I've heard? I've heard she's trying to get pregnant, and he's cheating left and right. So, girl, you keep that IUD in, okay? This is not the one. I really preferred her with g-eazy, though. I thought that they were a cute match, but I guess he cheated on her a lot. No shit, Ashley. No shit. They're musicians. They are going to cheat. Well, that's not what we're going to talk about today. I want to talk about his sexual fluidity and the pros and the cons. Now, if you guys don't know, I'm bisexual. I don't consider myself queer. I don't use that term. I don't like it. It's fine for other people. It just doesn't represent me. I don't like it. So I don't have to use it. And so I consider myself bisexual, and my sexuality is something I've gone through a lot of ups and downs with. And I've kind of settled, as you might know, on the term party lesbian. I like to hook up with girls, but right now at this point in my life, I don't want to date a girl. I talk to girls all day. I am a girl all day. It's a lot of estrogen. And I'm not one more, not one more. But to date someone who is sexually fluid is really interesting. So here are the pros and cons as I see them. And I want to know if you guys have had experience in this category, dating a guy who's still figuring it out, is very loosey-goosey on the spectrum of sexuality, or if you absolutely wouldn't, tell me your thoughts. And there's no right or wrong answer. And I really think PC culture has done such a disservice. It's swung too far to the other side where it's no one can talk about anything. You're being transphobic. You're being this, you're being that. It's And where does that get us? Where does all this like, shh, you're silencing everyone when you're like, I'm offended. First of all, literally no one gives a shit. To say to somebody on the internet, I'm offended. Who are you? Who are you? Why would I care? Why would you care if you offended me? Like, and all that's doing is makes people shut up. It makes people too afraid to talk about things and be honest. And that's no different than like the baby boomers who are like, gay is bad, pray the gay away. You know, it all ends up in the same place where people are being silenced and minimized and no one's really making any progress, you know? So I know that bisexual is like the old school word for what I am, but like, who gives a shit? Who cares? Who cares what you are in general, you know? And I've done videos before on why, like, I don't think you should label yourself anything. Like, and it's really tempting when you're young you want to fit in, you want to have a tribe, you want to feel like there's something that's anchoring you socially. And it's very easy to be like, well, I'm going to make it my sexuality. I'm going to like declare myself gay, pansexual. I don't even understand what pansexual means versus sexually fluid. I don't. And I suppose I could Google it, but I don't know, man. And so what you do, it's like getting a bunch of tattoos. You know, you think like, oh, I'm going to get all these sleeves and a chest piece and blah, 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 and then no one can rein me in. Actually, the opposite is happening. Now you have pigeonholed yourself as that look forever. And putting this big, loud label on yourself can do the same thing. Like, life is really long. You don't know who you're going to end up marrying. You don't know, like, where you want to go. Maybe it's a phase. Maybe it's a permanent thing. Maybe it's going to change. But if you're like, I'm a lesbian, and you go around and tell everyone that, then if you meet a guy, you're going to be like, ha, 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 fuck. You're going to feel like you have to go door to door again and tell everyone about your sexuality. It's like, first of all, no one is asking. No one is asking. Nobody cares where you put your genitals. They really don't. Your mom might, but she's the last person who needs a big label on. Just live your life and let it unfold the way it unfolds. Labels can box you in the way those tattoos can. So while it's good that people are like using labels to reach new planes of self-awareness, it can have an adverse effect. So that's why, like, I mean, and my friends watch these videos and they're like, you're bisexual? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, you've never brought that up to us. I was like, yeah, I mean, because I don't want to be like bisexual girl. It makes it look like I'm like a blue-haired bartender. You know, it just has like a connotation that I'm like, I've dated guys like consistently for a decade. I was married, and it's like, nobody cares. Nobody cares. And I don't define myself by my sexuality. There's so many more interesting things about me than like who I sleep with after 8 tequila shots, right? Unless, of course, they're famous and really cool. And then that probably is the most interesting thing about me that week. So the pros of dating like a guy who's sexually fluid, it's like, it's exciting, right? It's exciting. It's unpredictable. And there's this element of feeling like more alive. Like you're having not one relationship, but there's like multiple relationships within the same one because the gender roles are changing. And like, he might be girly one day. And then that means like you can be like the masculine one. And Halsey posted a picture of her in Yunglud. And she's like, who's the boyfriend? Who's the girlfriend? Like 99% of you get this wrong. And someone in the comments was like, you peg him. We get it. Like she fucks him with a dildo. I was like, oh, I bet she does. So yeah, it's exciting. It's unpredictable. And it allows you the opportunity to explore different sides. I believe, and most psychologists believe, that sexuality is on a spectrum. You know, very few people are 100% straight or 100% gay. Like we're shades, and it changes. It's fluid. I know it's super buzzy, but like it is. So again, we don't need to put labels on it because fluid is always moving, right? You're not going to put fluid in containers. You're just going to let it fluidize. So it's going to give you the freedom to be a little bit more exploratory. And that's great because the number one thing I want in someone I date is someone I can learn from. And sometimes I'm learning about the stock market and a hedge fund. Sometimes I'm learning about sailing, baking, how to neuter a cat, whatever it is he might be good at, I need to learn. And it's great if you can date someone who's helping you learn about your actual psychology and your sexuality, and who might just give you a tiny fragment more of self-awareness, because you know what I always say, you can't be part of a whole relationship if you don't know what half you are. And we don't understand who we are unless we learn about it, unless we spend that time going down those rabbit holes, chasing those threads of curiosity, whether they be about a hobby, a career, or a sexuality aspect. So it's cool to date someone who's going to like open you up like that. But with every up, there is a down. There are downsides. For me, yes, I do need to date somebody that I can learn from, but I also need to date someone who does know what half of that whole they are. I'm older, you know, so like when I was 21, I didn't necessarily have that as a huge thing that I thought I required, although I don't know anybody who wants to date something that's just someone who doesn't know what they bring to the table. Because dating isn't about, it's not about who you want to date, it's about who you need to date, who emotionally you need to click with. You know what I mean? It's like eating. I want to eat 10 bags of peanut butter M&Ms. I want that. But what does my body need? Needs a goddamn kale salad, all right? I don't want it, but I need it. And so dating's the same way. Like, you can choose the people you want, the lax bro, the cool edgy guy, the fuck boy who you think you're going to change. But what you need might be a guy who's actually kind of introverted and he's sort of low key. Or it might be the guy who's like the life of the party and he's going to pull you out of your shell. You don't know that. And you learn that and you figure out those components by knowing yourself. You know, and then once you do have a better idea of yourself, as I do, because like I said, I'm older, I've been around the block, you know what you will and won't accept in terms of dating someone who does or does not know themselves, you know? And I run into this a lot because I date younger guys, like way, way younger. And it is tough. And like, there's, not that they're sexually fluid, but there's these similar kind of elements because they're exciting, they're unpredictable, because they're growing and changing a lot. But yeah, it's like, okay, well, what do you bring to the table? I don't know what I'm hitching my wagon to because it's always shifting. And that's fun for a little while. It can get old. You know, it's an individual kind of thing. So it is difficult, I think, to date someone who's sort of like a moving target and they're shifting and they're experimenting and they don't know what they need. So how can they know if you're fulfilling those needs if they haven't even identified what they are? And it's just, relationships are tough enough when you are 100% on the same plane, right? When you know how you both feel about religion, politics, kids, cats versus dog, Chinese food versus Thai, all of these things. And if everyone's sort of like up in the air about sexuality, that can be tough. It can be really tough. And it can leave us feeling like our needs are not only not being met, but that maybe our needs aren't valid, you know? Like if you're dating someone, a guy who's like, I am exploring my sexuality, and you're like, okay, well, I need a really stable partner right now. I'm going through a tough time, blah, blah, blah. You guys are in two completely different places. And then it's his natural reaction. It's most people's reaction when they can't give someone something to like minimize its importance so that they don't feel guilty. And that's just going to normalize you telling yourself that you don't need what you need. And you might take that into your next relationship with like a fuckboy who's then going to manipulate you, be like, what do you mean I have to take you out on a date? Oh, just come over, blah, pay for your own Uber. And you're going to be like, you're going to have this sort of like hangover from the previous relationship and be like, yeah, I know, I've been told before that my needs are stupid and they're too high or they're too intense or they're too frequent or whatever it is. So it can be tricky. Also, I don't think I can, at this point in my life, date a guy who's sexually fluid because, quite frankly, I don't need the competition. Literally, I don't. Like, I like, girls are enough. And for me to be like, oh, you like, wow, so you want dudes too? Oh, and maybe trans. Okay, well, I am going to have to start wearing a lot more makeup or less. I don't know. Now I don't know. Like, I know how to compete against girls. I don't know how to compete against guys or like a third gender. I don't know. And I am too old to learn. And that's just me, you know? And like, live and let live. that might not be the right relationship for me. It might be a great eye-opening relationship for you. But you really have to sit and ask yourself. And like, if you truly, like, if this is sort of like coming out of the woodwork, you have to ask yourself and him some hard questions about just the basic parameters of your relationship. If he's like, hey, I think I feel an attraction to men, and you guys have previously been exclusive, it's not fair that he's like, well, then I can just cheat with men, because I'm finding myself, you have the right to be like, no, that's not what I signed up for. That's not what are my needs within a relationship. And for these reasons, I'm out, like Shark Tank, you know? And you can't let, again, the PC aspect, it's like, I'm not rejecting his sexuality, I'm shaming. No, it's just not a great fit right now. And that's not to say it won't be a great fit down the line. You never know. So I want to know if you guys have had experience with this. And I was actually talking to some of my gay friends about this. I'm like, what do you think about the sexually fluid thing? Because they're like my age, you know, they're a little older. And they're like, honey, one's like, it's a layover to gay town. That means gay. I was like, really? But then my other gay friend, he's like, no. He's like, I guess technically I'm sexually fluid. Like, I've hooked up with girls and I might still hook up with girls. He's like, but I predominantly date men. He's like, I date men. I'm flaming gay. This is so funny. And so even within the gay community, there's like different points of view on this. Obviously within the straight community, there's different points of view on this. So I want to know if you guys have dated a guy who's sexually fluid. Do you consider yourself sexually fluid? And how has that impacted your dating life? And what do you wish people would know? Or like, how do you wish boys would approach you? And because I really feel like we could collaborate on this, because there's so much, you know, sexuality, I feel like, has become like the Wild West. Like every day I wake up and there's a new term I've never heard of. I'm like, that's why I'm sticking with bisexual. I understand it. And I love new vocabulary, but I'm like, I'm just going to stick with what I know right now. So because things are changing so fast, it's hard for people to have meaningful dialogues without tiptoeing around, you know, the PC-ness of it. So I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say. And like I said, if you want to talk with me privately about this kind of thing, find me on the Instant Go app. My username is ShallonXO, and click chat to get connected. And follow me on Instagram at ShallonXO. And be sure to listen to my podcast, Girl on Top, out every Wednesday, every place podcasts are found.